I'm Bill Koch, and I'm the Dean of the Nashville School of Law, and I'm joined today by 4 members of the great class of 2024. And we're going to be talking for a few minutes about coming to law school and what it's like being in law school so far. And why don't we start by introducing ourselves, and why don't we start here and go around the table?
Okay, I'm Kelly Moody. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan, and have lived in Nashville now for about 7 years. And most of my experience previous to coming to law school has been in procurement for automotive companies and commercial real estate companies. So I deal with contracts all the time. So that's what led me here to Nashville School of Law.
Great.
I am Amy Parker. I am one of the unicorns who's been in Middle Tennessee. I'm a local my entire life. Grew up in Wilson County and then Rutherford County. And I had a publishing career, editor, author, writer, for about 20 years, and then knew it was time to go back to school and came here. So, with no context whatsoever for the law,
Great.
except for the occasional contract.
Great.
So,
Daryl Harvey, originally from upstate New York, been in Nashville for about 10 years now. I've had a very eclectic work history, different industries that I found interesting, and settled on investment real estate and got into a lot of lawsuits over the years and figured, well, I should probably just learn about this and help myself out and helping other people. So one of the best decisions in my life so far.
Well, let me ask y'all, and we don't have to go in the same order here, but you had expressed the reason why you went to law school. Is this to help you with your work, or do you want to practice law, or what do you intend to do with this degree when you get it next year and when you pass the bar?
Well, initially it was to help me with my current career path, but I am also passionate about it and interested in it, so I would like to practice law as well. I'm just not sure exactly which route I'm going to take with it at this point, but I do intend to take the bar and, do intend to practice in some capacity.
Yeah.
I'm Christina Rice. I am from Cookeville, Tennessee, so on the fringes. I'm also a unicorn. I was born and raised in Cookeville, and I went to Tennessee Tech for my undergraduate, and then I started a family, got married, had 3 little kids, and after my last child, I just knew it was time to go back to school, and law was always an unrealized interest that I had, and I felt like it was finally time, and I think age and experience gave me the confidence to invest in myself and the courage to try something completely new, so that's how I ended up here.
Now, 1 out of 3 of you had a law orientation, but the rest of y'all sound like me, just kind of backed into the law. So what was it about going to law school that was so attractive when you could have furthered your education a lot of different ways? You could have got an MBA or done other things. What was it about law?
I'm really honestly not sure. I always saw myself getting a doctorate in English and being an English professor, but it never set right. And then honestly, it was just like a calling. It just became super clear to me that I needed to go to law school, and that path was laid out for me, and I just followed each step, and it just it's been confirmed every step of the way. So.
Yeah, for me, honestly, I knew that I was going to go back to school. I just knew within me that's what was going to happen. And so I just kind of took steps to shadow in a few different areas, completely unrelated professions. I just thought, well, I have the opportunity to do this. And so I shadowed a few different areas. Honestly, though, law had always been something that I was interested in because I'm naturally very justice-minded and I'm ready to argue about it if the situation so presents itself or I bring it up. So after speaking with a friend of our family who's also an attorney, it gave me the confidence, but also it just confirmed the thing that was already inside of me, that I thought, well, maybe I can do this. Let's try it at least.
So I looked at a couple master's degree programs, MBA and master's in public health, and one of the reasons why I didn't do that is I didn't necessarily feel a calling for it, but also looking at the cost benefit analysis of laying out the time and giving up your life, so to speak, and also paying back the extraordinarily high cost of a higher degree. It just never sat right with me. And getting into the real estate, I started looking at law schools, and Nashville School of Law just clearly stood out as the one that was most economic, most feasible, and there were just so many positive attributes to it. And it ended up where Nashville School of Law was the only school that I applied to. I didn't want to go to any other law school, so that's kind of how I got here.
For me, it's something that just kept coming up. You know how things come up over and over and over again in your life, and you might ignore them the first couple times, but then at a certain point, you gotta listen to it. I, like I said, have been in procurement for a long time. I negotiate contracts on a daily basis. One of my, the general counsel at one of the companies that I worked for said, "Hey, you know, you're good at this. You should go to law school." And when she said it, no, never going back to school. You know, I had already been through an MBA program. I did not want to go back to school. Years later, it came up again. And then the last time it came up, I was working for a company here in Tennessee, and a coworker of mine said, "Yeah, I'm going to take the LSAT in a couple months." And I said, "Really? It's something that keeps coming up. Maybe I should take the LSAT." And he said, "Yeah, you know, this school, Nashville School of Law, you know, it's kind of built for people who work." And I said, "Wow, well, that would make it actually possible for me to do this. So let me look into it." And so there were 3 of us who actually were like, "Okay, we're going to take the LSAT. We're going to apply to Nashville School of Law." I'm the only one who did it.
But you know, that raises a good point that you all might want to address too, and that is, how did NSL get on your radar? You know, it's not like we run ads on television or you see us in matchbooks. So how did we get on y'all's radar?
I knew that Belmont Law existed. I knew that UT had a law school program. And when I sort of started exploring the idea, I thought, I have a job. I still had, you know, a teenager, so a little, not like having little kids at home, but I have duties at home, and I can't see myself being gone 8 hours a day. Also, I make an income, which is important and not dispensable at our house. So I just started searching. I guess Google would be the person to thank. And I discovered Nashville School of Law. And then once I started digging into it, I'm like, oh, I know a few people who've been to this school. And the more you start researching it, the more it makes sense. And I've thought since then, on paper, when you compare Nashville School of Law to UT Law or Belmont Law or Vandy, of course, Nashville School of Law seems sort of like the underdog in a way. But when you're here and you start to get to know some of the professors, you start hearing rumors about some of these professors, about what kind of change they've made in our legal world, and then you see them on the news, and they're making big decisions and enacting justice in our world, in our state, and then they come to school at night just like we do and teach us what they've learned. They're not law professors. They're active in the law, learning current law, just like, you know, everyone else active in the legal field, and then they bring that back to us. And in that way, I think Nashville School of Law is unlike any other school out there. I was just so impressed and surprised by that.
I'm going to name you an official spokesperson for the Nashville School of Law.
So going off of what Amy was saying, one of the things that really struck me as a positive thing about National School of Law was the fact that it's practicing attorneys, it's sitting judges, it's former chief justices of the Tennessee Supreme Court, and so, the Nashville law community as a whole is really small, and what a blessing and benefit it is to be interacting with titans of the legal community right here in school. And so you have a 4-year runway and head start compared to all the other law schools in just getting to know the judges and what they like, what they don't like, what their expectations are, and what the proper way to like form a motion or a summary judgment motion. All of those things, it's such a contrast to, I think, a lot of other schools where they're just teaching about theory. And the difference is also in speaking to former NSL students that have graduated and started their careers. One of the things that they've really harped on was the fact that they felt that they could hit the ground running after graduation, and they didn't necessarily have to go and spend 2-3 years at a law firm to learn how to become an attorney. And I think that NSL has really given us all the opportunity, or at least the mindset, that hey, we can do this, and we are prepared as much as we can be in going into the legal world after graduation. I think it's amazing.
And how did you find out about us way up in Putnam County?
Well, actually, I had, and I still do, had a friend who was currently in this program, and she was someone that I reached out to at the time just to talk about law school in general, because I really, like Kelly, I really didn't know. I'd heard of UT and Belmont, but Putnam County, Knoxville with the time change, and and Belmont didn't have a part-time program, and so she just really talked about how she loved Nashville School of Law. And again, in our community, of course, more rural than Davidson County, so many of our attorneys and judges are NSL grads and really effective, intelligent, articulate attorneys and judges in our community. And so really there was no I don't even want to say downside, but there was no negative, as not to repeat everything they've said, but the feasibility and the freedom that you have when you can graduate, at least how I will, debt-free, that's right there. That alone gives you the freedom to make choices, I think, with your career that some people can't do with $60,000, $80,000, $120,000 of school debt. And I'm sure there's great educations at these other places, but as Daryl said, those abstract ideas that we do learn here, we do learn it in the abstract. The practical is where the meat is, why people approach us to represent them one day, is to get through the case, not to tell them about this abstract notion of the law that we learned. So that's how I learned and ultimately chose NSL.
Well, let me ask you all to look in the rearview mirror now for a minute. You've been accepted to the Nashville School of Law. You've come to orientation. You've listened to all the talking heads. And then that next fateful Monday, you show up for your first class, which happens to be torts. And I'm not saying that torts was your biggest surprise, but just tell me, what was your biggest surprise about law school when you started? A preconceived notion that just was completely not right.
All of it. All of it. I had not been in school for, 20 years. So even undergrad was a distant memory. I was very comfortable in my career and what I was doing. I felt like I knew what I was doing. And then I put myself in a situation where I have no context for what I'm even learning. And so all of it was overwhelming. It was deer in the headlights. And we all started 2020, so we did Zoom School of Law, or we had the option, but I did Zoom School of Law the first year, which actually made a nice transition but but just the preparation that it took, being cold called, that was terrifying. And then just learning the language. That's what I always tell people. Learning the language was the hardest part. When you're here, when you start law school, you're speaking a different language, you're reading a different language, and I'm all about language. I'm an English major, but law school is learning a different language. That was probably the most shocking thing to me. I read all the time, and I would read and think, I don't even know what I just read. What did he just say? And I'm a reader, so that was the hardest thing for me, was learning the language. But once you learn the language, you reach sort of a comfort level where you feel like you know what you're doing a little bit.
What was your biggest surprise?
Same. Everything. And, also, when I got here, I didn't know the difference between a tort and a crime,
Sure.
And so for me, it was really kind of, learning all of those things was like, oh, so I would go home and tell my mom, hey, did you know that this, So, and the other thing is that, I learned that it is doable. It is doable. It is not this, thing that it's so hard you cannot overcome. You can do it. And so that was really important for me to learn.
Something different?
Well, I echo their sentiments, but also, one of the preconceived notions that I had in talking to friends that are current attorneys that have graduated from other law schools, and also like watching some movies like The Paper Chase and whatnot, is I was very anxious on the front end, not knowing anybody here, and also wondering if I was going to get stabbed in the back, and if people were going to be free flowing and giving with information and exchanging and sharing, their outlines, their notes, and willing to converse with me and be collaborative. And it was such a breath of fresh air that, at least in our class, it really is a familial aspect to it. And there have been so many times throughout the past 3 years where, I've asked for help and reaching out. It's like, well, this subject I'm struggling in. Does anybody have anything that can help me? And you have a plethora of people that come to your aid, and vice versa. And I've been very willing to share what I have and any insight that I might have. And I think that was probably the most astounding thing to me, is that what I perceived was not at all what reality was.
Yeah, I agree. The first year, the first class, the cases, the language was disorienting. It truly was, but we were prepared that would happen. I think the thing that surprised me the most, being naturally a catastrophizer, already assuming it would be very difficult, I think I assumed there would be a lot less care than there was. You brought up torts. I can honestly say, it could choke me up if I talked about it too much, but the amount of care that we would receive from certain professors, really reminding us not to get lost in the pursuit of this goal or any other goal, but to remember your family. This is a very important part of your life. Don't put this in front of them. Work hard, but don't lose sight of the important things. I did not anticipate that. I didn't. Kind of like what Daryl said, whether that be the camaraderie with our peers. From the professors, I assumed there would be a coldness, a chill to delineate professor from student. And certainly there was professionalism, but there was also just a lot of care and concern and accessibility. And I don't know if that's common elsewhere, but it's very common, very, very common here. And that surprised me in the most pleasant way.
If I might, let me ask y'all one last question. How has going to law school now for a little more than 3 years changed you?
Well, I definitely can't look at legal television shows the same way anymore. I mean, I'm like,
ruined.
that would never happen. You know? And then I find myself, kind of being super analytical and explaining things when friends or family members have things that come up. Like, we've had deaths in the family. People come to me, ask me wills questions or estates questions. So, it's definitely changed. It's changed the way that I think about a lot of those things, and I might not have put any thought into them previously, so it's definitely changed the way that I approach things, certainly from a legal perspective.
On a much more abstract level, I realized that I can do things that I didn't think I could do, and this has been difficult, and working while going to school is difficult and juggling, but the community that comes around you, the support that you get, and then just the ability to get it done year after year and to be successful at it year after year I've surprised myself. And we had a big life change in my family my second year where I even thought, can I even continue? But I thought, how can I not continue? And so I put on my waders and stuck to it, and I'm still here, and that has just given me a renewed confidence. And for someone, of my age to still be learning that I can do new things, and, this dog can learn new tricks. So it's a renewed confidence, and you learn that you can do the hard things.
Yeah.
I think for myself, like my language has shifted dramatically from before I started school and to this day. And now I just think of things in shades of liability. So I find myself reflecting back on, say, a decision that I could make, whether to like buy a piece of real estate and the way to approach it, where 3 years ago I would go shooting from the hip, and now it's like, whoa, I could get myself into some serious trouble about this, and it's because I was ignorant to the law. And until you go to law school or try to educate yourself in the law, you just don't know what it is, and there's serious repercussions if you don't know, and which is why you should always seek competent legal advice.
There you are.
For me, first, it really, similar to Daryl, it taught me to not only speak but think less in absolutes. Especially in today's climate, it's very easy to see something that's happening right now and only look at that thing. But you have to look at how we got here to know to help you either understand why we are where we are, or how to change the ship to get to a place where we want to go. And if you just look at what's on the news or social media, it's hard to understand, and really it can create division because you make assumptions about people. But the thing about the law is learning how when justices make decisions, they think at the repercussions and what's going to happen along down the line. And seeing how they think that way, and you hear people even that are like-minded with you might agree before, yes, this should happen because it aligns with my beliefs. It opens your world up a little bit to say, okay, but consider the full repercussions of what this would mean. And I don't think that would have been possible to think fully through until going to law school. So that's been very surprising, but good.
Well, let me thank all four of you for sharing your experiences at the school, being so candid about your experience. And I'm going to end this by just telling you that we are just delighted you're here. You and your classmates. What many of us tell you is the reason why we're here is because you all are here. Because there are other things we could do. But there's nothing more fun, right, than going to law school on Monday, Wednesday,
Right.
Thursday night.
No better place to be.
So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.